Development, Honorable VP Haritatus, Minister of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development, Honorable Senator Mtsangwa, Honorable Ministers, other Honorable Ministers who will be present here, Deputy Minister of Industry and Commerce, Honorable R.I. Modi, other Honorable Deputy Ministers here present, members of the ruling party, ZANU-PF Politburo, led by Comrade Munyarazi Machacha, the National Political Commissar, the Chairman of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Industry and Commerce, Honorable C.G. Dua, other members of Parliament here present, Deputy Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Dr. N. Diweni, other commissioners from the Public Service Commission who may be here present, Deputy Chief Secretary for, in the Office of the President and Cabinet in charge of flagship projects, Engineer Marawa, other Deputy Chief Secretaries who may be present, the Zimbabwe Land Commission, the commissioners here present, Permanent Secretary for Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Bulawayo Metropolitan Province, Ms. Pignoni, the Permanent Secretary for Industry and Commerce, Dr. T. U. Ushe, other Permanent Secretaries is here present, the Chairman of ZITF, Dr. Busisa Moyo, heads of state-owned enterprises and executive officers, distinguished captains of industry, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you all to Bulawayo and to the second Rural Industrialization Economic Empowerment Indaba. I wish to commend the Minister of Industry and Commerce, together with his partners, for organizing this important and timely event, which seeks to unlock the latent economic potential within our rural communities. This Indaba stands as a flagship empowerment platform, deliberately designed to transition our communities from peripheral participants to active equity holders within industrial value chains. Today, we gather not merely to deliberate, but to chart a bold and actionable path towards inclusive growth, one in which the benefits of industrialization extend to every village, every district, and every citizen of Zimbabwe. Ladies and gentlemen, our collective resolve to transform rural economies into hubs of productivity, to empower communities with skills and opportunities, and to ensure that industrialization is not only confined to our urban centers, but becomes the driving force of national development is imperative. As we engage in dialogue guided by the National Development Strategy 2 and Vision 2030, let us remember that rural industrialization is more than an economic agenda. It is a social contract. It is about restoring dignity, creating employment, and securing sustainable livelihoods. Therefore, we should harness our natural resources responsibly, embracing innovation and building industries that reflect the resilience and the creativity of our people. Distinguished guests, rural industrialization and community economic empowerment trusts represent a transformative model for community participation. We envisage the community economic empowerment trusts as a district level holding structures that will aggregate production, negotiate bulk input, manage shared infrastructure, and secure equity participation in joint ventures with investors. Through these structures, communities will move beyond being mere suppliers of raw materials to becoming shareholders in processing plants, participants in logistic chains, and stakeholders in downstream markets, including retail platforms in urban centers. Ladies and gentlemen, let us reaffirm our commitment to building a nation where empowerment is not merely a slogan, but a lived reality, where every citizen, regardless of location, contributes to and benefits from the industrial renaissance of our country. Rural communities already provided the backbone of our raw materials base. Our task now is to translate this into local wealth retention, job creation, and sustainable capital accumulation within those communities. Distinguished participants, as I conclude, allow me to underscore that this Indaba must serve as a decisive turning point for rural industrialization and economic empowerment in Zimbabwe. It should move us beyond dialogue into action, where pilot initiatives are scaled into national programs and where our resolutions translate into tangible policy, regulatory, and investment outcomes. Let this platform inspire a renewed commitment to implementation, coordination, and accountability as we work collectively to unlock the full potential of our rural economies. I wish you all fruitful, a productive deliberation as we design practical and scalable models that will transform our rural districts into dynamic engine of economic growth. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think one of the key points that he made is that this is a critical dialogue, but we do not want to just dwell on conversation. We want to get into action because in terms of rural industrialization, there are so many critical elements that we need to consider, from job creation, industrial development, and empowering our nation on a wide spread. So let's talk about talking to action. What are we doing? What have we achieved? Let's look at the resolutions from 2025 and the progress report presented by Dr. D. Runyoa. As he comes through, ladies and gentlemen, please give Dr. Runyoa a round of applause. And let's see where we stand in terms of our progress.
Thank you very much, our Director of Ceremony, Mr. Arthur Evans. Let me recognize our ministers, Honorable Mchangwa, Minister of Women's Affairs, Small to Medium Enterprise, as well as Honorable Aritatos, who is our Minister for Lands and Rural Development. Allow me to also acknowledge our Ministers of State who are here with us, the representative of Honorable Judith Nuwe, represented by Director Saunyama, Honorable Tavengwa, who is here for Harare Metropolitan Province, and also Honorable Chadzamira, who is here with us, and also on the top table, our Oversight Chair, Honorable Chidua. Thank you very much, distinguished delegates and colleagues. My task here is to connect you back to the inaugural meeting that we had in 2025, where we had the first ever rural industrialization agenda that was held here in Bulawayo at the ZITF. And I think what I want to emphasize as we move on is that we put a contextual to ensure that our rural conversation was happening with the need to unlock rural potential and also make sure that we have got a clear roadmap that will guide us in our development of rural industrialization. And I will move on with my presentation just to say the hosting of that event only was indeed a key milestone, and it was successfully hosted here in Bulawayo. And our theme focus for 2025 was inclusive growth, industrial roots, unlocking Zimbabwe's rural potential. And you can see that it also connects well with our theme for the year 2026, which is leveraging economic empowerment, accelerated rural industrialization. And during the conference, when we met last year, we recognized a key driver of inclusive growth in rural industrialization. It was something that was really emphasized, that if you want to be able to develop inclusively, you need to look at rural industrialization to help you push this particular agenda. And colleagues will recall that at the start of NDS1, 43% of all major industries were estimated to be in Bulawayo and Harare. And this case has now been reversed under the Second Republic, where in whatever direction you go from here, you will meet your Meru plant deep down in Mausekwa. You are also able to meet deep down in Rutenga an industry that is leveraging on our resources that are found there. So we really need to push rural industrialization, because it is the theme that will ensure that we carry everyone on board, as emphasized by His Excellency the President, of leaving no one and no place behind. As we met also last year, colleagues, we also touched on resource stewardship, and the key emphasis was to ensure that our provincial ministers must lead the rural industrialization, and we had all of them coming here to make presentations on the comparative advantages that they see in each and every province, which must be the bedrock of rural industries that will connect the rural masses, create employment from people where they are living, and be able to help our economy, including exporting products that are in rural areas, coming from the rural industries that are there. And we carry forward that particular discussion from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Each and every provincial director who is in the province, they have a cocktail of provincial projects that they are monitoring each and every month, and these are embedded in our strategic plan, and we continue to monitor and to facilitate that growth in that particular regard. As we met also last year, we placed a lot of focus on value chains and sustainability. We also realized the need to deepen agro-processing value chains. You can't run away when you want to develop Zimbabwe. You can't run away from the fact that we remain an agro-based economy, and we need to connect the rural economies, the rural people that are there, particularly our women and our youth. They are the ones who are driving the agro value chains, and we need to make sure we give them that particular support so that they grow from just ordinary production, the primary production, into agro-processing and value chains. And we are also picking a number of projects that we are pursuing in that particular regard. We also emphasize the need for our industries to respect our environment and to also move to sustainability. And in this regard, since our meeting last year, we have done a lot of work within the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, working together with the Ministry of Environment in ensuring that we mainstream sustainable practices in our industries. And I'm sure a lot of you would have seen what is happening, for example, in our retail spaces, where we are emphasizing more of natural spaces. Some of the key retail sectors that are coming in, like your green fields, they are using more of the natural light and moving away from the non-renewable uses of energy. We also emphasize the need to use technology as a catalyst for rural industries. We also emphasize the issue of the infrastructure guarantee, that as we develop rural industrialization, we need to prioritize the key enablers, mainly our transport for accessibility, our access to energy, to ensure that we are able to provide the extra megawatt, the extra kilowatt that is needed within the rural areas to power the the industries that are situated within the rural areas. When we met last year, we also emphasized the need for targeted empowerment, where we emphasized that employment and income growth schemes must be developed, which are designed for women and youth. And from our side as Minister of Industry and Commerce, we have gone backwards to push through for the revival of the Community Share Ownership Trust, and we designated them as Community Economic Empowerment Trusts. And this year alone, we are working to revive 30 of them. And this is a work that is already in place, and we are working through the provincial ministers to ensure that we put through that particular policy framework, and we are able to count and deliver to the nation revived Community Economic Empowerment Trusts. We've also worked on the revised law for the reserved sectors to ensure that we also guarantee participation by our own locals in tandem with foreign direct investment. We are using the reserved sectors as a vehicle for domestic direct investment, and the sectors where our locals can play in have been designated as those that are exclusively for locals, those that we allow the foreigners to participate if they are using foreign brands, and those that we will allow them to participate only if they are bringing in a certain level of investment through the thresholds that we have put in. This is the work that we have also been doing. When we met last year, we also emphasized the need to create resilient local enterprises through continuous skill upgrading. We have had a skills audit of the ministry itself and also of the industry, of the manufacturing industry, which we have done in collaboration with the Ministry of Skills Audit, so that we benefit from that particular audit and spotlighted areas where we need to improve. And we also talked about last year in terms of market access and optimization, where it was emphasized that we need to ensure rural producers are efficiently connected to broader markets. And we are happy that through the work of Zimtrade in particular, we've been able to look into even the small entrepreneurs in the rural areas. We have been connected and are able to export their produces. In terms of the key resolutions, there was also a call for a dedicated fund which has specialized financing mechanisms for rural entrepreneurs. And we are happy to report that working through the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Industry and Commerce, we have come up with the Industrial Development Fund, which is managed on our behalf by the Venture Capital. And I'm sure Mr. Kambasha will give a lot more detailed information about that. But what is interesting is that if you sift through the very first beneficiaries of that fund, they are not your urbanite entrepreneurs. Some of them are deep down in Cholocho, which shows that particular deliberate policy effort to ensure that we give financial access to our rural industries and rural entrepreneurs. And one of the most key output of last year's conversation was the need to enhance interagency coordination as far as issues of rural industrialization are concerned. Honorable Ministers, you will be aware that His Excellency the President has now put in place a cabinet committee which just focuses on rural industrialization. And some of the ministers that are here are actually coming through to participate with that. We certainly believe that the decision by His Excellency was very wise, but we believe that in a small way, the deliberate outcomes of our last year's conference played a part in informing that particular decision. It is therefore important that as we sit in here, we then provide clear-cut agenda for that for that committee, which is looking specifically at rural industrialization, and we make our key demands for them to be able to assist in that particular regard. We also looked last year on ensuring that we guarantee industrial land for rural development, and we are happy that working through our ministry, we approached all the provincial ministers and through their local authorities just to ensure that as they put focus on growth in terms of the residential areas, what is the rural industry that will support that industrial, that residential support. So I think we are also a very firm land bank, and details are available at our ministry to share with you where we have been given and allocated land. For example, I know in Bikita, in Nyika, in anticipation of the electrical vehicle boom, they've actually reserved some land where you can be able to go and set up an electric vehicle and the agro-processing center. So these are some of the key outcomes that have also happened. But going forward, colleagues, we really emphasized the need for alignment with national development. Whatever we discussed yesterday, we have also taken that on board into our strategic plan as a ministry. But most importantly, we will be aware that we came up with the Zimbabwe National Industrial Development Plan 2, which is going to be our industrial plan for the next 5 years. And it takes on board rural industrialization as a key pillar of that particular policy. And most of the key outcomes that we also discussed are mainstreamed in that particular policy. They are also mainstreamed in NDS2. So in that particular regard, I want to assure you that we have achieved the alignment of our resolutions last year with our policy and indeed with NDS2. And what now remains is that for now, let's continue to work together for a sustainable and inclusive rural economic system. Each and every one of us who is here today has got a critical role to play, and no matter how small you are, you really matter. And if you think you are too small, I think you have never spent a night with a mosquito. no matter how small it is, it will really make so much noise to be able to rush you to actually use some chemicals against it. So ladies and gentlemen, let's value all the input that we have brought in today, and let's work across the divide, guided by our government, guided by our ruling party, to push through the rural industrialization agenda. Thank you very much. Siyabonga, Tatenda.
Thank you, Dr. Runyoa. What's critical and what stood out for me was the alignment of resolutions and rural economic systems. And I think one of the critical things is that a system, to me, also speaks of legacy. Once a system is in place, regardless of who is playing in that sector or in that industry, there can be legacy. So let's zone in on these rural economic systems, and it should be relatively as straight as the crow flies towards the alignment of resolutions and aligned to NDS2. Right, I would also like to appreciate all the speakers that have spoken before. Thank you for keeping time. As you are aware, we are behind time. So to all the speakers and the moderators, I will be warning you as we go through. Let's be cognizant of time and let's be concise with our time as well. Next, I'd like to call upon Mr. T. Chinamano, who will be giving us a presentation on profiling investment opportunities in rural economies by Zimbabwe Investment Development Agency, ZIDA. So please welcome the CEO of ZIDA, Mr. T. Chinam.
So that's going forward. Okay. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, and a very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. As already, I've been warned that to keep time, so for the sake of that, I'll write on the protocols already observed, but to recognize our honorable ministers who've graced us here this morning, the provincial leaderships, and everybody else in the room. A very good morning. I'm hoping that what I'm going to share with you this morning will set the tone, perhaps, of what is possible within our rural areas. For those who don't know us, we are the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency, and our mandate is to draw investment into the economy, irregardless of where that economy is, be it foreign investment or local investment. So for us, rural economies are important, and I'm hoping that I can just share with you, just how some of that can be achieved. So I think this conversation is not new to Zimbabwe. I think it's a global thing. There's always this conversation about rural, urban and rural. And if we look across the world, so if you add up all the countries across the world, I think the latest information tells us that 43% of the global population is rural and 57% is urban. So again, that shows you the dynamics of developed countries and developing countries. If we focus really on the rural population globally, they contribute significantly to global food production and security. It's dominated by agriculture and primary industries, so mining and some form of extractive industries. There's high level of informality across the world and obviously lower incomes. And I think it's true across the world that rural people earn less money than urban people. And then, but what we're seeing globally also is that there's this slow evolution into diversified and connected hubs. So in some countries, and we are hoping that we become one of those countries where we start to benefit from that. So in Zimbabwe, again, the story is pretty much the same, with a population of 17.5 million or thereabouts. 67% of our population lives in the rural areas. Again, same things we see across the world. There's a high rural to urban migration, predominantly informal and subsistence-based. This is the characteristics of our rural population, dominated again by agriculture and primary industries. We do have resource endowments pretty much resident in our rural areas, and they are underserviced. And like we've just heard from the report of last year, there is land available. So what are the pain points? Why is it that we're still talking about trying to develop our rural areas? I think for any investment to go anywhere, it has to be attracted into that place. So what hinders large flows of investment into rural areas, first of all, is the infrastructure gap. If you're going to do anything, you obviously need infrastructure. And here we're talking of things like transportation or road networks, be it rail, electricity, water, and other amenities that any business that is going to be located in a place is going to require. We also have low productivity. Now, what do we mean by that is that if you take a typical outfit in a rural area and an urban area, probably because of lack of mechanization and so forth, what they're producing per hour or per day is much, much less than what you tend to find in an urban area. Limited access to finance, and this can actually be seen physically, is that how many banks or lenders are there in the rural areas. So if I'm a business person in a rural area, chances are that if I want to start a conversation with a financier, I have to go to the nearest urban center to do so. That person might not even be aware of where I am, and so forth. Also, another thing that is characterizing, the lack of free flow of capital into rural areas is the aging farming population. Because in the previous slide we spoke of the rural to urban migration, and it's normally the young people that leave rural areas. So what you tend to find that, yes, we might have a large population, but more and more the able bodies, those who are willing, who are able to really do a lot of the heavy lifting, are diminishing. Another characteristic, because again we are talking of an agro-based industry in this country primarily, there is a large, we lose a lot in post-harvest. So there's a good crop, the rains are good, we harvest a lot, but we just can't keep or store that harvest. And then access to market, again, it's another big problem that, that hinders that. And then limited value addition. So if you sum up this, I think you start to get a picture of why investment is not flowing as fast as it can to rural areas, and also what we need to address for that investment to come into these areas. And so to revive, or rather to stimulate investment in our rural areas, obviously is to incentivize companies to set up in these economies, but those pain points that I spoke about have to be addressed at some point. Capitalizing on the value proposition of specific regions and locations based on resources, climate, and information, and I'll speak about that a little bit later. And then set up industries that can be supported by renewable energy. I think that's something that we believe is doable, certainly. And then taking advantage of historical sites to drive rural tourism. And then set up labor-intensive industry to leverage the available human resources. And lastly, hub-and-spoke model leveraging on anchor investors to enhance production and productivity. So when we looked at, as an agency, that what can we do to stimulate investment into rural areas, these are the things we are talking about. And I'd just like to share with you, again, because of time, some simple examples which we are working on, and we are hoping that with the policymakers in this room and even business people in rural areas, we can start to have even deeper conversation around. So the first one for us is agro-processing, and we've just taken an example here of oilseed crushing and stock feed. I know there are a lot of companies in urban areas that do this, but again, let's look back at the sort of throughput that could be coming to these companies if something, maybe not on that larger scale, was set up closer to the production. So for this one here, the oilseed production and its challenges, we believe that Zimbabwe obviously produces a lot of soybean, sunflower, groundnuts, mainly via communal farmers, but processes mostly in urban centers. Obviously, this introduces high transport costs and other losses. For us, the investment opportunity really is, like I said, maybe not to start on a grand scale, but medium scale rural oilseed crushing plants using an hub-and-spoke model to reduce those losses and create value locally and support farmers with contract farming. In our estimate, such a setup could create easily between 120 and 180 direct jobs. You can also imagine the number of farmers that are supported by this. All of these things that I'm saying, I think is common knowledge. I think it's just a no-brainer. But I think what then becomes the game changer is our ability as an agency to facilitate the availability of land or packaging land, encourage investors to enter into these markets, integrate SMEs, and align incentives to ensure a bankable rural agro-process project. So this is something that we are working on. To say that, if we have identified an area that is producing a lot of these, these seeds, how can we incentivize a business person to go into that? So that's just one example. Another one we've just taken is export horticulture. So we're talking here of pack houses and cold chain infrastructure. I think it's common knowledge that in Manekala and in some regions in the Lowveld, they support high-value crops like citrus, bananas, macadamia nuts, berries, and vegetables. Now, the infrastructure there is the largest challenge. So obviously, we've got limited rural pack houses, grading facilities, cold chain infrastructure, which hinders growers meeting export standards consistently. Because once you start exporting to export markets, you have to maintain certain standards, and these things have to be done consistently. So the investment opportunities, in our view, is obviously investing in rural pack houses with integrated cold storage, and solar energy can boost export growth and create jobs as well in the process. So what are we doing as an agency? We administer special economic zones. We believe hub and spokes type special economic zones are ideal for this sort of setup. So we want to promote corridors where we know that in this area we are driving investment into these pack houses, that do be it banana, citrus, or any type of horticultural project. And so we want a system or a situation where we're fast-tracking approvals to enhance export competitiveness and investor confidence. So instead of just looking at one company or one investor, we want to say that this region, let's drive as much investment as we can to grow or become a world leader in this particular product. So I think that's another example we're also talking about. And then biomass and biogas, this is waste to energy solutions. Again, we've hardly tapped the potential that the country has in this. I know there are projects here and there, but if you look at it again, they're done at a very small scale. In a number of cases, they were started by NGOs. But we're taking this to a commercial scale. So what we're looking at here is that agriculture and industrial waste in Zimbabwe offers untapped potential for biomass and biogas energy conversion projects. And the sort of plants we are talking at here, again, we are now upgrading from the ones that you typically read about, perhaps done by some NGO or a small community has done something like this. So we're talking here between 5 to 10 megawatts of biomass and biogas plants, which can be developed, again, by our estimates between $6 and $12 million in terms of capital outlay. And this can produce sustainable energy. So this is a power plant within an area. Transmission costs to the projects are not that much as well. So even all the pack houses and things like that, they require consistent energy. And so this is another way, again, where we are localizing what we have in those communities. And the benefits for this, again, it's really, stating the obvious, but these projects reduce energy costs, obviously displace diesel and grid power, and again, open up opportunities for carbon credits and climate financing. So our role here, and we are also working actively on this, is that we want to support this circular economy investments with stock feed agreements, licensing, and investor engagements to enhance their resilience. So what you tend to find is that once you start to now go to the nuts and bolts of these things, investors start to ask these questions, and this is what we're saying, that we need to make sure that from a policy point of view, the way that an investor gets into these projects is smooth. And then lastly, I'd just like to talk about rural and community anchored tourism. Minister Rhodes speaks a lot about this. I'm sure you've seen the billboards, Zimbo. We are being all urged to explore our own country. But we need now to develop facilities in those areas. So we believe that community anchor tourism is the way to go on this, and this is something we are working with the Minister of Tourism on. So to develop in Zimbabwe here a focus on rural areas, linked to famous destinations in some cases like the Great Zimbabwe, but there's a lot of wonderful scenery in a lot of the country. And we also want to promote local engagements and benefits. And again, these are the things we hear a lot from the Ministry of Tourism. But we want to turn this now into an investment and something that can impact not only those local communities, but also the country as a whole. So we're talking here of mid-market eco-lodges and adventure tourism projects, which can generate returns, if you want to do the numbers, of between 17 and 24% to the shareholders. And on average, we believe that a typical lodge like this can directly employ between 80 and 150 people. So again, how do we look at this as an agency? Opportunities are bound for triple Ps. A local of our rural district councils own a lot of land, which again, they're looking for ideas and plans to do this. So access to land, I think, is there. And then we also are able to connect, those land parcels with investors with authentic tourism opportunities. So let me end there and then also invite you that in addition to just focusing on the rural areas, sector-specific, we also got these engagements coming up. The services sector, we've got a forum on the 13th of May, tourism on the 24th of June, agriculture on the 10th of June, energy sector on the 9th of September, and in manufacturing on the 18th of November. So look at these opportunities as again, with that rural mindset that this, whatever we are talking about here, can also be applied in the rural areas. There's a QR code there that you can scan, or you can go to our website. All that information is also there. With those remarks, thank you very much, and I hope we were of benefit. But we hope to engage you further in all these topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chinamo. And I'm going to help one of our delegates here today, Honorable Senator Mutswanga. I know that you are looking out at the audience when Mr. Chinamo was speaking as to why there are no banks in the rural areas. So I'm going to help you and see if we can locate any bankers here. Are there any bankers here? Any bankers here? Right, any bankers? Did I miss anyone? Right, then I submit that one of the action plans for next year is that we need to ensure that members of the financial service providers are here in this dialogue. I think it's critical to that. Oh, no, we do have. Thank you, Nedbank. Thank you, the Managing Director of Nedbank, Harry. Thank you, sir. You stand alone. Thank you, Nedbank. Prime opportunity. Fantastic. And I do appreciate, Mr. Chinamo, that a lot of your advices were scalable. And that's very promising in terms of rural development. So thank you for that presentation. Now, moving along, again, in the interest of time, I'll remind our speakers to adhere to their time allocated as best as possible. And as Dr. Busisa Moyo said, please just acknowledge that protocol has been observed. I'd like to call upon the Rural Engineer P. Moyo to take us on the rural development through value chain promotion for sustainable livelihoods by Transvaal Africa Private Limited. Engineer P. Moyo, as he comes through, ladies and gentlemen, you can give him a round of applause as well.
Africa is not waiting for transformation, it is engineering it. At the center of Southern Africa's next phase of trade expansion stands a strategic development adjacent to the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport. Led by Transvaal Africa in partnership with the Airports Company of Zimbabwe, the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport Cargo Village operates under a special purpose vehicle with national project status and special economic zone designation. This project is not simply infrastructure, it is the architecture of a new trade ecosystem. Zimbabwe sits at the crossroads of regional commerce. Yet for decades, value has leaked from the system. Agricultural producers struggle to access export markets efficiently. Logistics chains remain fragmented. The opportunity is clear. Build an integrated platform that captures value from production to global distribution. Transvaal Africa is executing that vision. This is not a single project. It is a synchronized ecosystem of 3 key initiatives: Transvaal Agro, Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport Cargo Village, and Transvaal Airlines. From structured production to international connectivity, every component strengthens the next to create a high-efficiency trade engine. At the foundation lies Transvaal Agro. We are transforming small-scale communal farming into organized, export-ready production networks. These units create disciplined supply, feeding directly into Transvaal's cold chain and export infrastructure. This is where production meets logistics. Our cold chain systems ensure that value is preserved from the moment of harvest until it reaches the global market. Initiative 2 is the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport Cargo Village, or RGMIACV, Zimbabwe's most advanced trade engine. With over 100 modern warehouses and bonded facilities, RGMIACV consolidates cold chain and customs processing to improve export competitiveness. Completing the chain is Transvaal Airlines, designed to restore strategic air routes and maximize cargo efficiency through global market access. High-value exports move from controlled environments directly into aircraft and onto global shelves within hours, from soil to shelf without fragmentation. No trade ecosystem is built in isolation. Transvaal Africa operates within a framework of strategic institutional collaboration. Our development is anchored by partnership with different institutions, ensuring alignment and infrastructure integration. We work alongside key agricultural and regulatory institutions, strengthening production governance and export compliance. Leading financial institutions are engaged to structure funding, trade finance, and long-term capital deployment. Industrial partners and regional stakeholders are positioning within the ecosystem, each aligned to a shared objective: to build a structured, scalable gateway for Zimbabwean and regional trade. Aligning with national development priorities, Transvaal is progress in motion. The moment to establish presence is now. Transvaal Africa is building the integrated trade gateway that connects Zimbabwe to the world, engineering the future of trade.
Thank you very much. Allow me to write on the protocol read observed. My time has been taken off by the video which introduces Transvaal Africa. 3 minutes have gone by. I'm left with 2 minutes. So I'll try to squeeze in as much as I can. We engineers are not very good at speeches. Allow me. I'm not going to be as affluent as the other speakers who are on this podium. Ours is to look for solutions. As you have seen, we are involved in the airport development, but as such, the value chain starts in the raw areas, our agro, our minerals. So here we're going to stand and I'm going to give you a presentation on what we've been doing in the raw areas. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. Sorry. This is our current raw setup. In each and every raw area, we see this setup. The previous speaker, the MC, has been asking, why are there no banks in this room? It's because of this traditional setup that we have in our raw areas. How do we move from there to modern infrastructure? How do we move from what we have to modern infrastructure? That's where our focus is mainly on. To move to modern infrastructure, to attract investments, to attract bankers, to attract industries, we need to do what we call resource identification. Minerals are in the country in specific areas, but what we have in abundance is our land, which is very productive, which is quality. We don't have a desert. But what is lacking, Honorable Minister told us, what is lacking mostly is to parcel that land, to evaluate that land, to classify it as a resource. We need a scientific classification of that land. We're dealing with village business units. They are growing, but what's lacking is the quality of the land for them to understand what crop needs to be there. And that has been our biggest handicap all over the country, where we haven't classified the quality of the land. What do we need to put in that land? What works for land in Manicaland? What works for land in Mrambinda? What works for land in Plumtree? That's our biggest challenge, Honorable Minister. Secondly, once we identify that, it's now the integration between business and local councils. We need now to sell that package land, sell that idea to investments, sell that opportunity so that we can change from this economic center. These are our economic centers, which is mostly a border store, a small trading shop with empty shelves. What we need are proper structures, proper infrastructures. A road, infrastructure roads, they follow where economic activities are. So how do we do that? We need to promote value chains. We need to identify our resource, parcel it out to investors. They will come and increase productivity, agro-productivity in those areas. Once we've got our capacities up, then we can now talk of value addition in those areas. We can now create industries in those areas. Then we can now put infrastructure, water, roads. We can now promote tourism. Everything follows where the economic activities are. That's what is hindering us, ladies and gentlemen. That is what is hindering us, cabinet ministers, government officials. We need to identify and parcel our resources correctly. That's our main constraints, and that's what we need to deal with. Secondly, our councils. Our councils, I'm sure they are here present, most of them. We have been talking and having conversations with our local councils. They also need to be very much involved in putting up blueprints that attract investments. For instance, we had a conversation with one of the councils, and we said we want 3 hectares to develop, and we charge $600,000. $600,000 to buy a grazing land. Honorable Minister, I'll be knocking your door for that so that you can open avenues for us. They need to charge what we call figures that can attract investments. So those are the main 2 things that are keeping our investments. If everything is aligned from resource identification to proper rates, investment can come, industries can come, value chains can be promoted, production can be upped. This is the sort of aggregation centers that we are on the road to set in the country. We were 60 district councils, 32 urban councils, and we're expecting to roll 92 of these centers, only if all those issues are mitigated. On those aggregation centers, we have value addition on the other side, which is the industrial part of it. We have places where the bankers can go. You can see the difference now with those traditional centers. Now this can attract even the tourists to go in us rural areas. This now puts everything into perspective, into action, into practicality. We will stop from talking. That's now increase or improves the rural livelihoods. This now attracts us to be more present in those rural areas. This now attracts us to put up more investments in those rural areas. I will leave you to play a video about it, of this aggregation center. Thank you very much. That's where my presentation ends.
Thank you very much, Engineer. I too move around with a security detail these days, ladies and gentlemen. The level of events that I host, I now have a security detail. This gentleman here, if you try and attack me at any point in time, as you can see, he knows Kung Fu, Karate, Jiu-Jitsu, and every form of martial arts. Mr. Nxumalo will be with us from the Sign Language Interpreters Trust to ensure that there is inclusivity over the next part of the session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to invite the Minister for Lands and Rural Development, newly appointed Honorable P. Haritatos. A big congratulations to you, sir, on your recent appointment. And I'd like to invite you to take the podium for your remarks. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. I'll try not to confuse the sign interpreter because I speak multiple languages, so I'll try and keep to just one language. Otherwise, you know, when I say Shona, no more say Greek, no more say Italian, Mjana. So I'll just be talking to you in English today, just to make it simple. No one has taken the effort to teach me in Ndebele, so I'm inviting those out there to teach me so that at least I can truly be multilingual. Let me start by recognizing the Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Arthur Evans. I would like to also recognize the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Bulawayo Metropolitan Province, Honorable Judith Ncube, as represented here today. The Minister of Women Affairs, Community, Small, Medium Enterprise Development, Honorable Senator Monica Muchangwa, Nababa Muchangwa. The Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Masvingo Province, Honorable Ezra Chadzamira. Our Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Charles Tavengwa. All Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers here present. I cannot not recognize Inindri Mwanawe Msangano with ZANU-PF, so I would like to recognize our ruling party, ZANU-PF, represented by our National Political Commissar, Comrade Munyaradzi Machacha. The Portfolio Committee Chairman of Industry and Commerce, my brother, Honorable Clemens Chidua, and other members of Parliament here present. Our Deputy Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Dr. Ndiweni. The Permanent Secretary of Industry and Commerce, Dr. Ushe Utete. All other Permanent Secretaries here present. Chief Directors and Directors of Senior Government Officials. Our Board Chairman of ZITF, Comrade Busisa Moyo, the entrepreneur and billionaire, as I've said to him earlier. Chief Executive Officers of parastatals and agencies, Captains of Industry and Commerce, business membership organizations, distinguished development partners, our hard-working rural entrepreneurs and farmers, members of the media fraternity. It is indeed my distinct honor and privilege to be here with you all in the city of kings and queens for this critical rural industrialization and economic empowerment Indaba of 2026. On behalf of the government of Zimbabwe, of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and indeed on behalf of His Excellency the President, Dr. Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, I extend a warm welcome to every delegate gathered here today. We meet under a theme that is not merely a slogan, but a national directive, from policy to production, leveraging economic empowerment for accelerated rural industrialization. Ladies and gentlemen, what this means is no more talk, but action, action, and more action. Land is the bedrock. As the newly formed Ministry of Lands and Rural Development, we recognize that there is no production without the land and the communities who steward it. For over the past 5 years, our agricultural sector has proven its resilience, growing from a gross value of $5.2 billion United States dollars in 2019 to an impressive $10.3 billion United States dollars in 2025. The real story behind that number is indeed industrialization. The real story is ensuring that every dollar generated in the rural areas is multiplied through value addition within the district, rather than exported as raw material. But as we stand here in 2026, our focus has indeed shifted. The era of merely celebrating increased tonnage of primary produce is certainly beyond us. The era of merely celebrating increased tonnage and primary produce is beyond us, the next phase of our development journey, anchored firmly in the National Development Strategy 2, the Zimbabwe National Industry Policy 2, and the Agriculture and Food Systems Rural Transformation Strategy 2, is about value, beneficiation, and industrial might. For too long, our rural economies have been tethered to the base of the value chain. We produce the maize, the cotton, the livestock, only to see the real value and the jobs that come with it accrue elsewhere. This Indaba marks a turning point. Our mission is to ensure that every district not only produces, but processes, packages, and profits. To underscore the importance of value addition, I would like to give you two examples that I always use in tobacco. In my former ministry, we launched the Tobacco Value Chain Transformation Plan, which has value addition at its heart. Those that smoke cigarettes, you pay $1 for a pack of cigarettes. That pack weighs only 25 grams, which means it's $40, 40 United States dollars per kg. Yet that tobacco would have been bought from an auction floor for about $4. If you look at cigars, again, an example I always use, because we do produce cigars in Zimbabwe. That simple cigar, when you put it on scale, you are paying 6,667 United States dollars per kg. But again, that tobacco is bought from an auction floor for anywhere from $4 to $6. So the 352 million kgs we produced last year only gave us $1 billion worth of value. This year we're expecting around 400 million kgs of tobacco, which is likely to get to about 1.2 billion. If we value add, you can understand the multiplier effect will definitely benefit us as a country. Under the Agriculture and Food Systems Rural Transformation Strategy 2 and Rural Development 8.0 model, we have moved decisively from pilot phases to nationwide scaling. We are not just talking about farming. We are talking about establishing local industrial hubs through aggregation centers. Our strategic roadmap includes the operationalization of 35,000 village business units, 9,600 school business units, and 460 irrigation scheme business units. These are not just agricultural centers. They are foundational infrastructure for rural industrialization. By integrating the Pfumvudza and Twasa model with our VBU's solar irrigation systems, we are climate-proofing this industrial revolution, ensuring that a drought does not halt the engine of production and processing. The foundation of this transformation rests on the land and tenure security. For too long, the lack of bankable tenure was a handbrake on rural investment. I am pleased to report that as part of the Agriculture and Food Systems Rural Transformation Strategy 2, we are accelerating the issuance of bankable, registrable, and transferable title deeds. This is a cornerstone of economic empowerment. We are unlocking the collateral value of the land so that farmers can access the capital required to invest in agro-processing machinery, cold chains, and transport logistics. We are turning land into a financial asset that fuels industry. This is a game changer. We are moving from viewing land as a social asset to leveraging it as a financial instrument. This is what we will de-risk the private sector investment in the national agro-industrial parks and the Greenbelt irrigation projects that this strategy envisions. The nexus between agricultural development and industrialization is operationalized through Rural Development 8.0. We are moving beyond the pilot phase into aggressive nationwide scaling. Let me give you the depth of the commitment. Firstly, 35,000 village business units and 9,600 school business units means that this is not just gardens. Under our agricultural strategy, these are solar-powered irrigated production hubs linked to aggregation centers. They are the factory floor for oliculture, fisheries, and poultry. Under our ward drought mitigation centers, we are establishing 1,620 of these as future ward aggregation and beneficiation hubs. This is where the produce from the VBUs will be graded, processed, and linked to the market, creating rural employment at the source. Finally, Infrastructure 6.0, the dam is the economy model. The 12 dam projects currently under construction are being developed as complete ecosystems. This includes hydroelectricity to power the irrigation scheme business units, fishery development for the Presidential Community Fishery Scheme, and portable water for our communities. This is integrated rural industrial planning. Ladies and gentlemen, this transformation requires a coordinated ecosystem. Land, water, energy, education, health, mines, tourism, local government, and road infrastructure development must work in symphony. That is why we're strengthening land use planning and agro-industrial zoning. We are aligning production zones with market infrastructure, ensuring that a farmer in a remote district becomes a vital link in a global industrial chain. In the coming months, I will be working with my team on a national master plan, which will be within our new land policy. Specialization within our respective provinces is a must. Our target is ambitious but achievable. To grow this sector into a $15.8 billion United States dollar economy by 2030. To get there, we must foster inclusion. We are promoting contract farming and corporate aggregation to ensure that smallholder farmers are not spectators in this process, but active participants and shareholders in rural industry. As I officially open this Indaba, I challenge every delegate in this hall. Let us not leave here with just notes. Let us leave with partnerships. Let us leave here with concrete plans for the factory floor, not just the policy desk. We must use this platform to answer the hard questions. How do we connect women's cooperatives in Masvingo to the export market? How do we power agro-processing plant in Matabeleland North? How do we ensure the wealth generated from our soil remains firmly within our districts? To some, these are challenges, but in actual fact, they are opportunities. As Zimbabweans, we must come up with the solutions that indeed turn these into opportunities. And in my opinion, the women and the youth dividend that exists in this beautiful country and indeed will be the future and epicenter of this success story as we move with speed towards President E.D. Mnangagwa's Vision 2030. Distinguished guests, the transformation of our rural economy begins with intelligent utilization of our land. Let this Indaba be the spark that accelerates our journey from policy to production, ensuring a legacy for generations to come. It is now my singular honor and privilege to declare the 2026 Rural Industrialization and Economic Empowerment Indaba officially open. I wish you a fruitful and deliberate and productive deliberations. God bless you all. God bless Zimbabwe. I thank you.
As the only green MC in the world, I will save you your energy and make you say one word, and that one word is wow, because that delivery deserves a wow. Please give him a wow, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited. I don't know about you, but I love the vision. I love the terminology. I'm not excited at the fact that our sign language interpreter and my bodyguard is now also protecting the minister. But we'll discuss it. I might get beaten up later on. But what's exciting were things that the minister spoke of, the perception, the view of land being a financial asset and a financial tool. I'm very excited about the master plan that you are coming up with. And I think it's something that the previous presentations and the previous speakers will be very keen to lean into and understand what this master plan is. And I'm also excited about specialization in provinces. Very excited about specialization in provinces. Honorable Senator M. Mutsanga was listening very keenly throughout the presentation, but especially when Honorable Haritatos leaned in and emphasized the inclusion of women in this process. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, Community Small and Medium Enterprises Development, Honorable Senator Wanika Mutswanga. As she takes the podium, ladies and gentlemen, please give her a round of applause. And you can also give her a big wow.
I didn't get the wow, but thank you very much. Thank you very much. The Director of Ceremonies, Arthur Evans, thank you very much for directing this event so well. The Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution for Bulawayo Metropolitan Province, Honorable Jane Ube, ably represented here by Director Saunyama, Minister of Lands and Rural Development, Achango Burwa, Honorable P. Haritatus. We are excited. Yes, strengthening rural land use will certainly take out a lot of our people out of poverty. Thank you very much. The Minister, there is Minister of State for Provincial Affairs for also other provinces. I saw Honorable Chazamira from Masvingo and Honorable Senator Tawengwa from Harare Metropolitan Province. I all salute you. Other ministers here and deputy ministers. I have seen also the senior leadership from the ruling party of ZANU-PF, and it is only in order that I do salute you and thank you. As deployed cadres in government, we feel so warmly accepted in what we're doing when we see our leadership here. That is our National Political Commissar, Comrade Munyaradzi Machacha, Ambassador Chris Mchangwa, ZANU-PF spokesperson, Honorable Mai Stembisonyoni, who I have learned a lot from her, who is also the Secretary for Economic Affairs at ZANU-PF. I've also seen the Deputy Secretary for Security, Comrade Chirau. We welcome you, and that shows that the ruling party is working with the people. This is precisely what is required to make sure that there's rural industrialization. We thank you. Let me also salute the Deputy Chief Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet, Engineer Marawa, Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Industry and Trade, Dr. T. Ushe, other permanent secretaries and senior government officials who are here. I've also seen public service commissioners who are here. The chairman of ZITF, Dr. Busisa Moyo, who welcomed us. The portfolio chairperson of Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Honorable Chidua, and other members of parliament who may be here. Captains of industry, SMEs, organizations, and we love you and we know you are so resilient and you are working so hard to bring the economy of this country to where it is today. Distinguished guests, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be back here, but let me just say I was listening carefully from the presenters who have presented before me, and I think I have got a challenge because it has been very, very clear that we need to build an integrated platform for a successful rural industrialization for sustainable livelihoods. It is important that we need to continue with this discussion. And I'm challenging all of us in this room that do we really have to wait to come only once to Zimbabwe International Trade Fair? Because when you look at the speed at which our people are moving with the mantra of the president of saying Zimbabwe, we may remain behind. And I'm challenging that we need to continue to meet and discuss and monitor and evaluate all these ideas which we are putting together today. We listened carefully, Dr. Renewal, when he gave us the resolutions of our last rural industrialization in Indaba during this time. And we have also listened to many other speakers who spoke. And I think it's important that we continue to take stock because we're really moving fast as a nation and we need those concrete plans to be always monitored. We need to ensure that everyone is out of poverty. I'm honored, as I said earlier on, to stand before you today at this very important rural industrialization and economic empowerment in Indaba. which is convened under this theme, I quote, "From policy to production, leveraging economic empowerment for accelerated rural industrialization," unquote. This theme, ladies and gentlemen, is both timely and compelling as it captures the very heart of our national development agenda, which is to move beyond policy aspirations and translate them into real transformation in the lives of our people. Allow me to commend the Ministry of Industry and Commerce for convening such a diverse and distinguished gathering. Indeed, when thought leaders are in one room like this, practitioners, regulators, and captains of industry converge, the outcomes have the power to reshape our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on rural industrialization in Zimbabwe, it is important to note that micro, small, and medium enterprises are the entry point to rural industrialization. The small and medium enterprises, the Act itself defines them as businesses classified into micro, small, and medium categories. And this is based on employment levels and annual turnover. Micro enterprises typically employ up to 5 people with turnover of up to 50,000. Small enterprises employ between 6 and 14 people with annual turnover of more than 2 million, while medium enterprises employ between 41 and 75 people with turnover of 5 million. So you can see most of our companies in this country are within that category. These thresholds provide a practical framework for identifying and supporting SMEs as key drivers of economic growth and development. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of this sector is not theoretical. MSMEs contribute over 67% to Zimbabwe's gross domestic product, and they account for more than 70% of employment in the economy across all sectors. This makes them not only the backbone of livelihoods, but they are the first layer of local value addition and the first layer of community participation in industrial growth. At the same time, we must also highlight the indispensable role which large industry plays in rural industrialization. Big industries anchor and strengthen the MSMEs around them. Large-scale investors create opportunities for supply chains, subcontracting, skills transfer, and market access. What is needed is a deliberate linkage, and that linkage model should be there that connects the big producers to the MSMEs so that industrial growth does not remain concentrated in a few places, but spreads across the country and reaches out rural communities. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most practical strategies is for big companies to contract out some of their specialized work to MSMEs in rural areas. There are many jobs in manufacturing, in fabrication, in assembly, in packaging, in logistics, in maintenance, and component production that can be outsourced to trained and competent MSMEs. This approach not only expands production capacity, but also helps to build local enterprise, deepen participation, and spread the benefits of industrialization far beyond the main factory floor. Ladies and gentlemen, for this model to work effectively, we must invest in training, in mentorship, equipment, and quality assurance so that our MSMEs can become credible suppliers and trusted service providers that meet the standards required by industry. This is why certification by the Standards Association of Zimbabwe is so important, and we work with them. In this regard, the ministry is strengthening its efforts through collaboration with tertiary institutions such as Great Zimbabwe University to capacitate MSMEs with critical business. We all know, ladies and gentlemen, that universities are engines of development. And as a ministry, we are working very closely with them. We want the technical, the innovation skills, which is required for industrial participation. This approach becomes even more relevant when we look at the steel value chain. The developments around Manise have shown us the power of a large industrial project to stimulate broader economic activity. Steel is not just a product, it is an ecosystem. Around steel, we can grow fabrication, engineering services, construction inputs, transport services, tool making, metalworks, and a wide range of MSMEs-led enterprises. In that way, ladies and gentlemen, the steel value chain becomes a powerful engine for MSMEs development and rural industrialization. In the agricultural sector, we've heard so many things from Minister Haritotos, who just came from that ministry. The opportunities are equally significant. Agriculture remains one of the strongest foundations for rural industrialization because it touches all our people's lives, so many households. And it is those households who provide the raw materials for processing, for packaging and distribution. We must therefore continue to promote agro-processing facilities that transform local produce into market-ready goods. Zimbabwe is a global case study of how to deliver rural transformation through a world-class gold leaf tobacco sector, we have been already told. As we gather here at ZITF, mentions with a discerning quest flavor tobacco demanded by premier cigarette manufacturers are patronizing our tobacco sales flows. Ever since the 2004 to 2005 introduction of contract tobacco farming model, the crop went on to faithfully rescue year 2000 epochal land reform from the stark spectre of the commercial crop. Today we all know more than 180,000 SMEs, leaf producers, share that annual bonanza of 1.2 billion of golden leaf tobacco trade. Rural households now carry solar panels on their roof, solar pumps. They deliver potable water from bowls. Non-centrally distributed green energy is the thing. No more internal wait for ZESA and centrally delivered electricity. This is another shot on the road to poverty eradication and the prospect of middle-income society by 2013. His Excellency, our President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa's mantra, surely and steadily, is becoming a reality. As a ministry, we've gone to see farmers who produce bananas in Hauna, and we saw more than 2,000 banana farmers, and most of the time those bananas were actually rotting. So to avoid that post-harvest losses, and most of these farmers used to come all this far to sell their bananas. What we have done as a ministry, we have come up with the Hauna fruit and vegetable processing plant, which is in that area of Hauna. We are grateful to our development partners, AFDB and the International Labour Organization, who have come together with us as government, and that factory, as I'm talking, has started operating. So what that means is there's more money in our households, and that transforms their lives. We must also broaden our thinking to include mineral-rich rural areas where there is immense potential for jewelry manufacturing and other forms of mineral beneficiation. Zimbabwe is richly endowed with gold and gemstones, and yet much of this wealth still leaves our communities in raw form. If we establish jewelry manufacturing centers in these areas, what that means is we can create opportunities for artisans, our women, our youth. They can then participate in value addition. Let it be noted that since 2018, the gold mining sector has displaced the bellwether gold leaf tobaccos as the country's single largest foreign currency earner. And 70% of the national haul of that yellow metal now is mined by SMEs. And yet there are still people out there when the Director of Ceremonies asked for financial institutions. I was looking to see how many of them are around. How can we not service those SMEs in mining who are bringing 70% of that gold? This stellar performance breaks record of any startup business enterprises anywhere. Then the mouth-watering performance calls for even more attention as we strive to increase our production to attain 100 tons, and we will get there. We are grateful for the environment, business environment, which has been created by our president. I really want to say we can't stop at just those who are within our country. We have got our Zimbabweans in diaspora. Again, this is yet another darling performer in the SME domain. For those who were at Mapisa and listened to the president's speech, he was very grateful and thanked the diaspora for the money they are bringing in back into the country, which has transformed our families. The nation is reaping a very good reward of that people-driven investment in education. A war-disciplined rural population, which has embarked in massive building of own village schools, the prize being Zimbabwe's educated diaspora, who are disciplined and skillable labor force, earning that hard currency convertible, and we will need them. And as we plan, as we come up with concrete plans, let's always do that with our diasporans in our mind. Ladies and gentlemen, as I end, the examples I have cited point to one clear conclusion. Rural industrialization is not a distant dream. It is a practical pathway that becomes real when we build value chains around our local resources and link them to markets, standards, finance, skills, and technology. But these alone are not enough. We also need enablers. We need roads, power, water, digital connectivity, and efficient market skill systems to support industrial activity in rural areas. I'm so happy the Minister of Lands spoke glowingly about the women of this country who have moved faster than men. And this is true. The youth who have moved, who are resilient. I want to end by just saying, may this Indaba not end with discussions alone, but with renewed commitment to action, partnership, and implementation, and remove the mind of working in isolation. Let's work as one. This is our country together, and together we'll get the results which we so want. Thank you very much.
Somebody say, wow. Stirring words from Honorable Senator Monica Mutsanga. Stirring words that have got to drive us to action. And I'm glad that in a presentation she quantified certain things. She quantified certain metrics concerning SMEs, their contribution to GDP, the sectors that are moving progressively. And I love what you said at the end. You said we need to broaden our thinking towards localized beneficiation. That statement is loaded because it also means that maybe we are not thinking broadly enough. And that's the challenge. That's the hidden mark that was hidden in that. So this is not theoretical. It's another statement that you said, Honorable Minister. This is not theoretical. We must translate this to results. We must translate this to action. And I'm going to translate this link into action, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call upon our dignitaries seated on the stage to a point of action, to centralize themselves in a caucus at the front for a picture, where they will then involve themselves in a moment of joyful expression as we take a photograph of them. This photograph will be etched in the echelons of history, for time, a legacy in the systems of today. This picture, ladies and gentlemen, in which the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, Mr. T. Wushe, will join them. This picture, ladies and gentlemen, will be witnessed by you. So, I'll invite our top table for a picture. I'll ask our photographers to position themselves accordingly, and I'll ask our dignitaries to please stand to their feet so that we can take our picture. We'll stand guided by the photographer so that we are all in frame. Can we bring them closer together? I cannot see them from where I am. Are they smiling? Are they smiling, yes? They are now smiling now. Fantastic. Because this is a good thing. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, and a big wow. Thank you. You may, you may take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Just to appreciate the dialogue that has taken place, I'd like to call upon Honorable Chadzamela, the Minister of State for Masvingo Metropolitan Province, to come through and give us a vote of thanks, and then I will give you information about our tea break. As he comes through, ladies and gentlemen, please give him a round of applause and a big wow.
The Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Arthur Evans, the guest of honor, the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Honorable M.N. Ndlovu, as represented by the Minister of Lands and Rural Development, Honorable Aristoteles. Our political members here present, led by the National Political Commissar, Comrade Machacha, Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan, and other Minister of States here present, and other honorable ministers also here present. The Chairman, Service Commissions, Dr. Vincent Ungwe, is represented. Minister Ramaswanda, tinokuremekedzai. Honorable C. Chidua, Chairman for the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, Permanent Secretary for Industry and Commerce, Dr. Uche, and other permanent secretaries here present. The Secretary for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Engineer Muguti, heads of diplomatic missions and international organizations here present, ZITF chairperson, captains of industry, distinguished panelists, and our rural industry pioneers, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. It is my singular honor and privilege to stand before you today to deliver this vote of thanks at the conclusion of this high-level rural industrialization and economic empowerment in Indaba 2026 under the theme From Policy to Production, Leveraging Economic Empowerment and Accelerated Rural Industrialization. First and foremost, to extend our profound gratitude to the Ministry of Industry and Commerce for convening this timely interview. The presence of such a diverse array of cabinet ministers spanning industry and commerce, lands and rural development, energy and power development, and women affairs, community, small and medium enterprise development clearly demonstrate the required whole of government approach for turning policy direction into a lived reality for our rural communities. To our guest of honor, your remarks provided a clear roadmap for leveraging local content to accelerate industrial growth and ensuring that the national vision of an upper middle income society by 2030 is inclusive of every district and every ward, leaving no one and no place behind. We are deeply indebted to our presenters and panelists, to the ZIDA, Mr. T. Chinamano, and to the experts from UNIDO, UNDP, and Zintrade. Thank you for bridging the gap between local potential and global markets. Your insights on de-risking and rural investment are scaling district economies into global value chains where invaluable and will guide action beyond today's discussions. We also extend special mention to our rural industry showcase participants, including some private players. You are living proof and world-class industrial capability can thrive in rural landscape, providing in the industrial anchors that our deliberations highlighted through the program. As the Minister of State for Provincial Affairs and Devolution, Masvingo Province, I listened with keen interest to the robust and fruitful discussions. Our provinces stand to benefit significantly from the outcomes of today's engagement, specifically in areas such as agriculture, value addition, mineral beneficiation, tourism value chain, and financial inclusion, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, today's deliberations have shown that the journey from policy to production is not abstract. It is a practical pathway to jobs, enterprise development, skills and upgrading, and sustainable rural industrial growth. This will culminate into the improved livelihoods of the ordinary citizens as envisaged in Vision 2030. To the Secretariat, our moderator, Dr. D. Runyowa, and the entire team at the ZITF Hall number 2, we say thank you for the seamless coordination and hospitality, the smooth flow of sessions from the opening engagement, expert presentations, panel discussions to the rural industry showcases reflects strong organizations and commitment. As we deliberate and continue having engagement, let us remember that the true success of this Indaba will not be measured by the brilliance of our speeches today, but by the smoke rising from the new rural factories tomorrow. Factories that employ our people, empower our communities, and expand our national productive base. Once again, to everyone who participated, from speakers, industry captains, development partners, and our rural industry pioneers, I thank you for your contributions. We reaffirm our commitment to inclusive development, unity and action in keeping with His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Dr. Emerson Damzo Mnangagwa, Smandra Nyika Inovakwa Nevenevai. My fervent prayer is that we return to our areas of jurisdiction and transform rural areas into industrial engines of our nation. Nevavo vandisina kutaura nemazita avo, you are very important in this session. Ndakusiyirai chete kuti muchengetedzeke from your secret enemies so that they don't know your location. I thank you. Tinotenda, siyabonga.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Honorable Chadzamela. And a big wow as well. All right, now I need to try my best to manage time, so please listen to me very carefully, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to break for tea, but listen very carefully to this before we go for tea. I would like to acknowledge the Deputy Chief Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet, Dr. W. Manongo, who is here. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Now, tea, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break for tea to the briefing room. The first group of people that I'll invite to go to the deep briefing room, our usher is waiting to guide you. I would like all ministers, deputy ministers, Politburo members, permanent secretaries, commissioners, and members of parliament to proceed to the left side of the room, which is my right. Please, could they leave now? And I'll also ask our delegates on stage to lead them. Thank you so much. As they do so, please give them a round of applause and a wow. Thank you very much. So this group is our delegates on stage, all ministers, deputy ministers, Politburo members, permanent secretaries, commissioners, and MPs. A gentle reminder that tea is 15 minutes only. There are 4 serving points across the room, all across the back. In each corner, there are 2 serving points. I'll kindly invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to migrate to those serving points to the closest side. We will return in 15 minutes with a panel discussion, session 1, the Rural Industrialization Frontier, Scaling District Economies into Global Value Chains. The moderator, Dr. T. Choruma, please be on standby. Along with all panelists, please be on standby. Dr. W. Munongo, Mr. F. Muyambo, Mr. I. Madziva, and Ms. Pam Tairodza. Please be on standby. You are taking us on for the first panel discussion after tea. Tea is 15 minutes. My time is 12:17, which means we will like to start promptly at 12:32. 12:32. Thank you.